Amy, can you hear me?
Hello, everybody.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good, because I have been having so many problems with my Zoom audio that I'm glad. Thank you.
Well, I have a webcam that only has a camera functionality, and it does not have a mic on it. So I'm having to call in, and my camera is constantly crooked, and I'm trying to get it straight. So give me 1 second. Oh, okay.
That's
that
good.
Dumb. How you doing, Alan?
Alan's muted.
Unmute yourself, Alan.
There we go. Sorry.
There you go. There you go.
I've done enough
Now
of
we're getting
these.
somewhere.
I think I'd have it by now.
Right?
Yeah, me too, but obviously I don't.
No, that's for sure.
This is
well, Sherry, appreciate you taking your time, Sherry.
Yeah, sure. I'm excited to talk to you. Thank you.
Well, and I
Sherry,
know
do you know Alan?
We are meeting for the first time.
yes.
Okay, Alan, why don't you tell her who you are?
Well, the immediate past president of the chamber. So I was the chamber last year, president of the chamber last year. I have been on the chamber board 4 years, Amy, is that right? Something like that. It's got to be around there.
Okay.
And all been good years, and it's been a good experience. And I've served on many different committees, been on the Economic Development Committee, and on this executive committee. That we have a really good group of folks that sit around the table, a lot of talent and a lot of people that care about Bellevue and care about the chamber. And it's been good. Yeah, it's been really good. My general background from business is I'm a landscape architect. The company I'm with is Reagan Smith and Associates, and we're located over in East Nashville. But we do a lot of land planning, consultant for different developments and developers. So that's my general background, and I've been in the Bellevue community since I was 12, so a while. How about yourself? Tell us a little about yourself, Sherry.
I'm a fourth generation Nashvilleian. My grandparents came here in 1900. And if you're a native Nashvilleian, you're probably familiar with their business, which was Bittner's, the costume and tuxedo rental business that was in Nashville for many years. I went to school in Nashville. I went to Harpeth Hall. And then I went and left the state of Tennessee to go to University of Florida. But I've been a resident.
Strike against her, Amy.
Sorry, I know. Listen, trust me. I've all, all my friends went to UT or Alabama, so I've had to deal with this a lot.
So this is worse because I grew up a Tennessee fan, so you know how much we hate Florida. But I graduated a Georgia Bulldog, so I really.
Oh yeah, no, we got some issues already, Alan. It happened.
Oh, dang it.
Right.
But anyway, I've been a Bellevue resident for 30 years. I remember my son lives in Atlanta now, and I can remember taking him to the old mall when he was a baby in a stroller. And so
Right.
I've lived in Nashville. I've spent a lot of time of my career outside of Nashville, although I've never moved from Nashville. So I spent a lot of time on the road. In fact, the last 2 months of this crazy period that we're in is the longest time I've gone without being on an airplane in probably 30 years. So
Same here.
it's weird. I'm in some ways excited to get back on an airplane again, just because I want some normalcy in my career. Fortunately, my clients are still doing some business, and so and I spent a lot of time in Jacksonville with one of my clients. So but I've managed to make a living in Nashville and not having to move away from Nashville. It's been something where I was able to raise my son here, my family here, and then but I've always lived in Bellevue as an adult. I grew up in Westmead in Hillwood area when I was younger, but as an adult on my own, I've always lived in Bellevue. And just last year joined the chamber. I've had my own business for almost 7 years. It'll be 7 years in October. I started my business having left the Country Music Association, where I was the senior vice president of marketing and communications. And so I have been very active in the music space and in marketing, for sure. At the time, I had done a lot of different things for a lot of different companies. I've had a pretty fortunate career, but the one thing I hadn't done was become an entrepreneur. And so I decided to jump off the deep end and have been feeling like I've been shot out of a cannon for the last 6.5 years. I've been fortunate. I can say I checked the box and that I've been successful doing that. My business has morphed from having tons of clients to having a few strategic ones because, clients don't want to deal directly with somebody who's maybe got 2 or 3 years of experience. They want me, and I just can't I only have a little bit of bandwidth. So I try to do as much as I can, but when I started my business, I've really been running like my hair's on fire for a long time. And just last year I said, I really need to start doing something that integrates into the community. I've been a member of the Convention and Visitors Corp forever because I've known Butch Spiriton and Dina Ivey for a really long time, back in the days where I was the publisher of a national travel magazine. And I also sold national advertising for travel magazine. So I've known those guys before it was a corporation and it was a bureau. And so I've been very, behind what tourism is doing in Nashville. I've watched that. And then I like to volunteer a lot in the city. So I volunteer with the CBC for Music Fest, which is weird because having been running Music Fest, CMA Music Fest. So the last couple of years, I've really spent some time trying to get back into the volunteer aspect and see what's going on in Nashville. I volunteered for the draft, and I was a supervisor for volunteers, which was great because I produce a lot of events in my real job, and I really want to see what the NFL was about because I figured that was so it's amazing to see what $50 million can do for an event. So, but great experience. And so, it's just been sort of an objective of mine to sort of get back into the local community from a business standpoint. And when I saw Amy's email about the board position, I just said that, I've become very interested in politics in the Bellevue area. I've been very interested. And I think this time, where we have time to spend on webinars and learn things that I've just become more interested in it, and feel like there's some things that I can bring from my experience, having served on several boards in this area. What
other boards have you been on?
So I've served on the board of directors of the Country Music Association before I actually went inside and worked for them.
Okay.
I've served on the board of TJ Martell Foundation, which is supports cancer research and supports
Mhm.
the Vanderbilt Cancer Hospital, and it's expanded and it's music based. I've been on the board of Gilda's Club. I've been on the board of Leadership Music, which is the
Okay.
music portion of Leadership Nashville.
Yeah.
So, and I'm,
Well, yeah, sounds like you've done a few of them.
yeah, I have.
So having worked
Well,
for an association and served on the board of an association, you have some familiarity with a C6 and
Yes, I
and
do. 100%. CMA it was a C6 or is a C6.
right. And how long did you work there?
Almost 5 years.
Okay.
so do you currently live in Bellevue?
I do.
Okay, so, and not that that's necessarily a requirement, but just curious about that. And so you run your business, I'm assuming, from home.
I do. That's right.
But you have a Bellevue based business too, so that's good to know. And your business, in a nutshell, is marketing. I guess give me a brief abbreviation of your business there.
Yeah, so the easiest way to describe what I do is connecting brands with fans. So I
Okay.
create experiential programs. I have clients that are, contract me to not only produce events, but also to recommend brand strategies. Music has been at the core of what I've been doing over the last several years. But I've been in other disciplines as well. I have a lot of experience in automotive, but mostly it's in sports. So I would say music and sports are the areas that I have, there's one of my clients was Athlon Sports. I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah.
with Athlon. And I have done a lot of work with those guys. Their business is suffering as, magazines, and I haven't had them as a client in a couple of years, but I've worked, they were my first client actually when I started my company, and I built out a lot of experiential programs tied to their sports annuals with big brands like BMW and AT&T. So that's sort of where I sort of have a New York sensibility, but I love living in Nashville and never going to leave. So
Yeah, it's kind of like a little, well, until recently, the last few years, downtown Nashville really, it didn't sleep. There was always something going on down there. A little different ball game now. Hopefully that'll be resolved here soon. So tell me, so you've been part of the chamber for a year. Give me your, outside looking in, your perspective, your thoughts on the chamber, how it's perceived from your point of view. And have you attended many events with the chamber?
I haven't. I spend so much time on the road that every time I've tried to go to an event, something happens and I get called out. And that's why I'm glad, I've been on a couple of the webinars that Amy has pulled together, which are remarkable resources for the chamber members. So at least from my vantage point, I think what the chamber has done and watching Bellevue change, I mean, certainly what's happened with One Bellevue Place is really putting us back on the map. I have seen the depression, if you will, of this area. And, things moving out or stops and starts. And then when the flood happened and then things, just businesses can't stay, you can't keep restaurants in the area, and so I do think that I finally feel like we've turned the corner in this area. And so I think that it's almost a hidden secret of what all is happening in this area, and the vibrancy and the ability to office and to work out of this area. When I listened to the I guess it was the SBA webinar that was happening, and I heard that Williamson County guy talk as the lead. Amy, I think that was the guy that was the head of the, maybe he's your counterpart in Williamson County. But I was like, I feel like what I have observed about Bellevue is that it's nimble and and a really sort of authentic community. And I look at and everything I look at is from a branding standpoint. So when I think about stuff, I think about how do you connect with someone? What is the strategy for that? And I guess the reason I'm having this conversation with you is because I was attracted to the strategy and to the branding that you guys have put out for the chamber, because
Right.
it attracted me to get more involved. And I feel like there's some skills that I have that maybe could do the same thing for other members, to get them interested and jacked up more than maybe they are now, or even from a membership standpoint, and also from a PR standpoint of bringing that visibility to the chamber. I mean, what's happening out here? I mean, I think the council people have done a nice job too,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of interesting things here that I like that houses are going fast, or at least they were 2 months ago. I like that people are, when I first moved out to Bellevue, there were not as many young people, right? And then so now there's I was one of the younger people, and now there's just an influx, and I like how people want to live in Bellevue now, and I think that that's going to bring businesses and interest. And what, like I said, what One Bellevue Center has done, or what One Bellevue Place has done, is really done a lot for the area. And and I hope that there is a continuation of that interest and enthusiasm for this area of town. There's so much to offer.
Right, right. So, in the year that you've been with the chamber, what would you say has been the positive aspect of you being a member of the chamber? And then what would you say you would look for? Hey, here's what I'd really like to see.
Well, look, I think that, the Nashville DMA is, everybody thinks Nashville's the it city piece of it.
Right.
I would like to have Bellevue be able to, be considered as part, of, it's not just, there's a lot that makes up what Nashville is. And
Right.
obviously we're one piece of it. One thing I will say is that the networking of the chamber is something that I was interested in. And in fact, I needed some digital social help for my business. And I went to the chamber website, and I just hired the Landslide Creative to help me. And I found them through the chamber. And I wanted to hire someone directly. So I hired Amanda, and I met at the coffee shop in One Bellevue, the independent coffee shop, and the
Right.
Well, as it's called, and met her for the first time a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago, and hired her to handle my digital and social stuff for Think Media Marketing, my company. So, I feel like that was one of the reasons I came to the chamber, and it was that, and unfortunately I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and do the networking that I'd like to do to meet more members. But that's absolutely a goal and an objective of mine for when I originally started.
Right. And one thing, Bellevue has been a little bit, we're kind of our own community within the greater community of Nashville. But you have the Nashville Chamber, which is a great chamber. It's very active, it's large, it's involved, but it really didn't have a representative voice for Bellevue. And that's where I really think this chamber fits in, and collaborates with both Williamson County and with Davidson County, Nashville's chamber. And the strength we bring to the table is we're that voice for our community. So that's one of the important roles we play as a chamber. And we're encouraging quality of life and economic development. That's the key things that we want to make our community better. And so, Amy, do we have currently sitting on the board 18 members. Is that correct?
17.
17 members. So here's what I'd say, from my perspective on the 4 years I've been there. There's great relationships built at the board level. There's a lot of passion at the board level to serve and to help. It does take time. And you mentioned you're gone a lot. Do you feel like you would be able to dedicate that time to the chamber? Because we meet as a board monthly, and then subcommittees will meet as well. So there's 12 meetings a year in addition to the subcommittees that you'd ultimately be on. So I guess, do you really feel like you could commit the time as a board member to serve positively on the board, and so that we can serve our membership at the highest level?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, Alan. I don't think I'd be here if I didn't want to put the commitment out there. I never wanted to put myself in a place where I would overpromise and underdeliver. So I'm here to say that, I will be there at the meetings, and I will be there to contribute at the highest level. I wouldn't want to have it be any other way, and I wouldn't
Right.
be if I didn't think I couldn't serve at the level that was required, having been on boards before and having had chairmen of boards say to a greater group, not specifically to me, that
Right.
you're here to do a job, right? Like we need you. This is not for building your resume out. So.
Right. And that's one thing I would say, both Williamson County and Nashville's chamber comes with heavy funded and well-staffed group. We have a great staff, but we're majority, volunteer support to our staff, and staff relies on that for us to be able to really operate the chamber throughout the 12 months of the year. So it's really a team effort, and that's been a really good thing. And so that's kind of what when we're talking to people, how do they fit that team? Do they have the time to make the commitment? Do they have a background in Bellevue? Do they have a passion for Bellevue? But also interconnections outside of Bellevue is something we look for as well.
Yeah, I know a ton of people in this town, having worked,
Right.
in the music space, and in tourism, and yeah. When I first started my company, it was like, oh, what am I doing here? And I was like, what is the top of the list? I was like, I know people, like I know people everywhere. So I feel like I probably know people on the chamber, the Nashville chamber,
Right.
All over.
Right. So.
Hey, Alan, would you mind if I jumped in for a second?
Yeah, I was actually gonna kick it over to you to kind of, I'm looking down kind of our general list of questions here, Amy, and we've kind of answered them here, and here. What are the other aspects of these questions that we want to make sure that we run by Sherry?
Well, I just had a quick question about your application. You indicated on your application that your top 3 priorities as a director, if you were to be serving on the board, would be membership growth, partnerships, and marketing and promotion. So I'm wondering if you have had any experience at your past in your past association life of selling sponsorships. I know you've done a lot of events and sponsorships for the Bellevue Picnic and our crawfish boil, which both have had to be postponed this year, are one of the largest sources of non-dues revenue that we bring in. And we have a tendency to bring back the same sponsors year after year, which is great. We have extremely committed sponsors, but we have talked for a long time about really needing to reach outside of the Bellevue community and maybe even bring in some regional sponsors or even national brands, particularly for the Bellevue Picnic. Although it's not a massive event like, you're used to with the CMA. It's a
You don't
15.
want that in Bellevue, by the way.
Oh God, no. I couldn't handle that. But we did get around 12 to 15,000 people at that event. That's our best estimate.
Oh, I've been to the Bellevue picnic since it first started. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you go last year when we had it at the Bellevue Middle School?
no, I did not.
Yeah, that was an amazing location. So we decided to keep it there.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's actually better than Red Caboose Park, and certainly better than where we were in 2018, which was just kind of a stepping stone because the park was closed. And so we went to the Hope Park location, which is going to be ultimately the Bellevue High School. And that was an interesting location. But, our profit margin for the Bellevue picnic has stayed relatively stuck in the same level every year. And I think, because of the amount of time and energy that we have to put into that event, I think I speak for the entire organization and the board when I say that we would really like to see our profit margins grow on that event, just because it takes so much of our time and energy, and we don't get to spend that time on strategic growth and membership development and all of the things that we, it just sucks us in for like 4 to 5 months of the year. So if you would tell me a little bit about your experience with helping grow and work with sponsors for events.
So that's really my forte. So to be honest with you, I came on board at CMA to be the director of partnerships. So and prior to that, I've sold national advertising. I sold sponsorships for all kinds of events. I've sold, that's why I know a lot of people. I've worked with brands all over the country. With CMA, I was brought into CMA to be the head of partnership sales. So I brought in all brand new partners from AT&T to Anheuser-Busch to Pepsi. Into CMA. So my first year we grew partnerships about 35%. So I know big and small, from candle companies to you name it. So that was my core. That was the core of what I started to do at CMA. They had, in fact, Paula Milton, who works now for the Convention and Visitors Corp and works with them to sell sponsorships for the CBC and for New Year's Eve and the 4th of July events. She was at CMA before me in a contract role, and then I came on in a full-time role. And so it's a little bit different. Obviously, you've got an event with 80,000 people, so you've got a different, you're selling differently, and the activations, are much, bigger. But I've sold when I started my company. I was working for, I was hired by Country Living. They did a series of fairs and festivals called the Country Living Fair. That was an antique/art show in 4 or 5 different markets across the United States. And I brought in corporate and local sponsors for them for those different markets. I've sold, I worked for Town Square Media, which owned Taste of Country Music Festival and about 8 other music festivals in the country, and sold sponsorships. They were all regional festivals, so I sold for them. And so I think that there's probably no better person that you could, if you ask anybody that you wanted to talk to about what my skill set was, they'd say she was a great salesperson. So I think that's really what I have made my bones on.
Good.
Well, that's great. I mean, we've spent a lot of time over the past several years developing our sponsorship deck, and we evaluate it all the time. We ask for feedback all the time. Are these sets of deliverables that we're offering you what you need, what you want? I've spoken with other sponsorship folks at Chambers, and we've compared information, and but I'm always looking for feedback, and I need input from people who have experience with larger events, because we want to make sure that what we're doing is in line with industry trends, and that we're offering, because I have absolutely no interest in just taking somebody's money for a sponsorship, for the picnic, for our luncheons, for anything that we do. I want it to be a really good fit, and it has to be the right part of a marketing strategy for a company. Event marketing is part of an overall strategy, and I want it to be a good choice for people. So,
And I think that's
it's
why
been
the word sponsorship has now become partnership. You know, people look at the word sponsorship as sort of less than, you know, it's a little less, it feels more commercial, whereas you say you want to be a partner. You don't want to just take their money and not have them come back or feel like they got something out of it. It doesn't work for a renewal or even for the moment if nobody feels like they got their money's worth.
Right.
I totally agree.
I concur. So let me throw this out here. Do you have any questions of us? What?
No, I don't. I mean, you know, I think there's some things I need to learn about the structure and the member base and sort of, you know, outreach for membership and the, you know, I as a member I understand the qualification or the joining the membership process, but in terms of the communication's been really good. So I've learned about what there is and what those resources are that are made available to members, but I'm not on, you know, I just haven't had the chance to interact as much. So I feel like I have some stuff to learn, but I know how boards work. You know, I know how a board membership works. I know how to work it from the inside and the outside, having done, you know, been working for the, you know, nonprofit or not-for-profit trade association, and having to serve up the membership as well as being on that other side. So I think I sort of have a well-rounded base of experience.
Right. When you served on the board of TJ Martell and Gilda's Club, did you have a specific role on those boards?
So again, back to raising money, you know, so like for TJ Martell, I was on the board for 10 years. The current Laura Heatherly, who is the current executive director, there were 3 executive directors over my 10 years. Laura was the last of them. She did a great job. They were tied, you know, there was a lot, for a while, there wasn't a need for money. Okay. You know, and all of a sudden, you know, nonprofits went through this, you know, everybody became very competitive. My role there was not on the development, like, of corporate development. My area was on they had a couple of key events and looking at sponsors, and trying to bring in companies that, and to help them ideate what you know, fishing tournaments, things like that they could raise money with, you know, buy-ins, bowling tournaments and things that TJ Martell used to do a lot of. With Gilda's, it was, I'm a cancer survivor, so it was an appropriate board for me to serve on, and I love what Gilda's does. So for me, it was volunteering at the Artisan Festival, you know, helping to you know, be you know, talk about, you know, work with them on volunteering at the actual club, you know, at the venue for when they had programming. And then they had 1 or 2 major events each year on art auction and stuff. So I was there to help them get, you know, not some auction items. They had silent auction items. I was, you know, doing things like that for Gilda's.
I do hate a silent auction.
Oh, well, the problem is now is that everyone has a silent auction. So it's just, like, I would rather dial for bigger dollars, but you know, so.
All day. I was the executive director of Happy Tales Humane for 3 years, and we did a huge gala every year. And strangely enough, we had a great group of people that went out and asked for items for our silent auction. And one year we had over 300 items in our silent auction. It was,
gosh, I love a silent auction. I love going to them, and I always buy
going to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but having to manage all of that stuff, oh my gosh.
I've had to do that too. I look at that and I go, man, those are hard, you know, so.
Yeah, or I'd rather just call people and ask them to give me $100.
Exactly.
Go out and get a lamp. But yeah,
I know,
they're fun to go to.
Mm-hmm.
They are fun to go to. Alan, anything else from your end, my friend?
I don't think so. I think, you know, we covered most of our questions, just, you know, a little bit all over the place, in terms of the intent of getting feedback. And, you know, Sherry, you certainly appear to bring the passion. You definitely got the background and connections that we look for. I think understand going into it, you know, this is a 3-year commitment. You know, we expect, you know, time to be committed if selected to the board. And that's being heavily volunteer based. That's how we function and have functioned for many years. And but we're looking to grow that and go to that next level. So that's why we're having these opportunities and these interviews, and really appreciate you submitting your application and taking the time to talk to us. And
Yeah, it's been my pleasure to talk to both of you. Please feel free to reach out with any questions. So if I have,
Absolutely. And just in terms of next steps, the Board Development Committee is going to be reviewing all of our applications, or reviewing all of our videos from our interviews, and they're going to be meeting on Friday. They have to make a decision and present that to the board for their vote, and that will happen on May 6th. And so we should have a definite answer on May 7th. So in between that time, after we have our little powwow on Friday with the Board Development Committee, if there's any questions that they want to ask to follow up, I'll send those out to you, and I'll keep you in the loop about the process.
sounds good. I'm
Thank
not
you,
going
Sherry.
anywhere. Can't get on an airplane for a few more weeks. So.
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't left the house in 3 weeks. I'm about
Oh
to go
my
crazy.
God. I have to go. My mom is driving me crazy because I have to go grocery shopping for her, and it's like, and she lives in Westmead, and she calls because she doesn't keep a list. And I said, I'm not going to the grocery store every day. You got to keep a list.
Well, I've been
I'm with
enjoying.
you.
I have let my child completely off the hook for school today because she has a friend over, and I'm just like, I'm a total failure as a homeschooler. So they're
Well,
outside playing right now.
Is school closed or no?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's been
Close
out,
for-
and we've been. It's out for the rest of the out for the
Right,
rest
that's
of
what
the
I
school year.
thought.
yeah, for the rest of the semester, I meant. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fun
lots
times trying to be
of changes everywhere. So my son lives in Atlanta, and I guess on Friday they're going to start being able to go to the gym and get their nails done. And I'm like, just don't know that I'm ready for that yet, but okay.
Yep, we're not going to be ready for that for a while here.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well,
Thank
let me
you.
get out of
Yes.
here, and I will talk to you later, Alan.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks, Alan. Nice to meet
Carrie.
you. And Amy, thank you.
Very good to meet
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay.
Take
Peace
care.
out. I'm leaving.